I gotta be honest with you guys. Zani sucks my balls every night before we go to bed. What's good, guys? CJ here, and today we gotta talk about some of the drama and some of the misinformation that's been going around regarding Zani, some of the doom posting, and I got a ton of information for y'all. We're gonna talk about Zani, what she brings to the table, how she compares in a team with Spectral Rover, and overall, the biggest misconception regarding Zani, Phoebe, and Rover. So, let's hop right in. We're going to start things off with the Pride win calculations for Zani's damage. Now, the main reason I want to kick things off with this is because a lot of people have been doom posting using these exact numbers while not reading everything that says right here. First off, when you first look at these calculations, you're going to notice two things. One, there's two different calculations. No other Wuthering Waves character has this. And the second one is that if you look at the numbers between Spectral Rover buffs and Phoebe buffs, there's a pretty big difference, right? So if you're looking at it and you're looking at S0 character in Zani, right, she's dealing 400k damage with Rover, where she's dealing 750k plus damage with Phoebe. Now, this is very easy to misinterpret. First off, the basic, yes. With Phoebe, Zani deals more damage. That is 100% true. It's quite easy to see, but there's more to it, right? If we go up here, it says, note that these numbers are affected by a lower amount of blaze and a lower amount of buff that does not include full team damage. In a full team context, the damage difference shown on the website will be much lower. What does this mean, guys? And let me just simplify it. In a team with Spectral Rover, Zani will deal less damage, but Rover will deal more damage than what Phoebe deals in her confession state. So to make things simple, while it does seem like a massive gap in damage with these two Zanis, the overall team damage is not going to have a gap in damage that is this dramatic. It's going to be much, much smaller. And that is because, well, Phoebe in confession mode hits like a wet noodle, whereas Rover, well built of course, hits pretty damn good. It doesn't really matter how well built your confession mode Phoebe is, she's going to hit like a wet noodle, whereas Rover is going to do some pretty good damage. Now, the Phoebe team will still perform better, but not to the point where people are thinking that it's worth doom posting, or where Phoebe completely outshines Rover to the point that Rover is just one utter garbage, and Zani without Phoebe is also utter garbage. So I really want to get that out of the way with this particular post, because Pride Win themselves went out of the way to put the disclaimer up there, and people can't seem to read. So that's the first thing I really want to get out of the way. Now, the next place we're going to move to is Reddit. I know, Reddit, the best place to find logical and well-grounded people to have conversations with regarding anything, okay? So the reason I wanted to come here is because this is where a lot of the doom posting is happening, right? So we have posts like this. What the actual fuck is Zani's kit? She's literally 40% weaker without Phoebe, and even if you use the premium team for Zani with Phoebe, it's only like 5 to 7 seconds faster in TOA than Phoebe's DPS. But Phoebe is doing this with a fucking Rover. But if you don't get Phoebe to Zani, it takes a whole rotation, 25 seconds more to finish. I haven't seen a character being so crippled without their best since slot in this game. My Carlotta without Sesha and her signature weapon can still dish out a very respectable amount of damage on her own. So, what are they talking about? First off, that 40% weaker without Phoebe is a crazy number to throw out there. Because if we replace Phoebe with Rover, we're looking at anywhere from like, I'd say 15 to 25% weaker. Let's just go at the high number, 25% weaker. So I don't know where they're getting 40%. And that's to be expected when you compare the free-to-play option to the premium option, right? Zani can work very, very well with Rover. Now, the thing that you got to keep in mind is that not only is the gameplay going to change, but the damage output is going to change. You're no longer going to have a top-heavy team, whereas Phoebe and Zani are very top-heavy, having Zani do all the damage. When it comes to Rover and Zani, it's going to be more of a team-wide DPS. Everybody on the team, at least, you know, Rover and Zani, are both going to be dealing out some pretty significant damage. Once again, Phoebe and Zani are going to stand on top because they're the premium units, the premium team, as opposed to the free-to-play team. But the 40% weaker is a pretty damn big number. Pretty damn big to what it actually is. Now, people posting like this have people thinking that, yo, Zani just absolutely sucks if you don't run her with Phoebe. Now, the second part of it is kind of true. Phoebe, as the main DPS of the Spectro team, is almost the same as Zani main DPS of her team. And yes, you can run Phoebe with Rover as opposed to Zani. And if you run Zani with Rover as opposed to Phoebe with Rover, the damage is going to be a little bit close, if not Phoebe doing a little bit more damage. But overall, if you run both teams in their best possible format, Zani's team is going to deal a little bit more damage, which is true, and there's a lot more that comes into Zani's kit. So when I look at posts like this, it just really annoys me because they're making people believe that just Zani sucks, that you need Phoebe in order for you to have fun with her. The fact that they put, I haven't seen a character being so crippled without their best in slot in this game, being so crippled, but there is people clearing all kinds of content without Phoebe. And I'm going to show you not only other posts, but actual video proof of what I'm talking about. So there's a lot of people talking about here, and bro, they're already doom posting Ziakona. And before you guys think this right here comes from like leaks or whatever, this right here comes from the actual game gallery that you can look at Ziakona's kit right now. Arrow erosion damage dealt to targets near the active resonator is amplified by 100% for 30 seconds. So they're already getting mad and doom posting Ziakona, Cartethia because of things like this. And it's really turning into a little bit of a problem where people are not only doom posting characters before they drop, but after they drop, and all without testing or just giving excuses as to why it is that these characters don't work the way they want them to, right? People want these characters to just be single units that you can go into the game and absolutely demolish everything with these characters by themselves. And let's be honest, it's a team building game. There's going to be characters that make the main DPSs be a lot better, right? Now, the next thing I want to talk about is this. Zani was undertuned compared to S0, Jinshi, Camellia, or Carlotta. I will never spend a dime on this game ever again. This spells a horrible future for the game and has completely soured my opinion on Wuthering Waves as a whole. Yes, Phoebe is absolutely mandatory for Zani if you want to be competitive with other DPS like Jinshi, or Carlotta, or Camellia. Now, I just want to say this. If you grab Zani with her free-to-play option, Rover, right, and you compare her to any of these other teams with their free-to-play options, not their premium options, they're all going to perform around the same levels. Yes, you might have like a 5% damage difference between this team and that team. You might have maybe a 10% damage difference between this team and that team. But you're not going to be sitting out here with a 20, 30, 50% damage difference between these teams while they're not using their premium partners. Now, if you compare them all with their premium partners, you know, we're going to be comparing things on the same type of levels. They're all dealing about the same damage. They're all, Zani as a main DPS, tier 0. Phoebe as a main DPS could be tier 0 as well. Jinshi, tier 0. Carlotta, Camellia. These characters are all really good. So when you compare them with their free-to-play teams, they're dealing relatively close to the same amount of damage as a team. The same goes for when you compare them with their best in slot teams. So I kind of feel that things like this are a little bit doom posty. And once again, it's people that don't go out of their way to test. They go out, they look at these numbers, and they just take it at face value. They don't even read what it says here. They don't even sit down to comprehend what single target damage from Zani as opposed to team-wide damage from Zani and Rover can be, and how they average out to not be a big gap, but something a lot smaller and a lot more manageable. Now, there's not to say that it's not kind of annoying. Once again, we've always said this, that Zani cannot apply Spectral Frazzle, but that's a whole nother topic. We're talking about the viability and the usability of the teams, right? So, we move on over to this, and there are more complaints. There are some complaints that I think are fair. There are some complaints that make absolute sense when it comes to the anniversary. Like, for example, this thing right here. You can't try out rerunning characters. I think that's kind of bad. You should be able to try out the current rerun banners and every one of the characters. Even if they give out 20 freaking Astrite for each character trial like they usually do, it doesn't matter, bro. But they should let us try out the characters, especially for the new players. New players go in, they have this awesome banner that allows you to pick all these characters, but you don't actually get to try them to see if you like their playstyle, if they fit what you're looking for, or if you even like the way they look in game. So that alone is kind of a big bummer for me, right? The whole rerunning 10 banners in one patch, I think that's stupid. I don't think that's a problem. To me, in my opinion, it's exactly the same as rerunning one banner. Just the only difference is you get to pick which characters you get. Last patch, we were rerunning Camellia, right? Instead of Camellia, they could have had 5 characters rerunning and you get to pick, right? I don't see it as a problem whatsoever. Does it induce more FOMO? Yes, but that's not a problem, right? Showing us the Annie event that will be available only in 24 days, yeah, that's a big problem. A lot of people were so mad at that, bro. Having that whole thing in there that shows you the pulls, but you can't get it until pretty much Zani's gone. Yeah. Kuro, y'all fucked up. Don't do that. I don't even know why you would put that in game to blue ball us this whole time, bro. People are pissed. I agree with them on that. Zani is less valuable as a standalone character than Phoebe damage-wise. This must be a joke. Zani is undertuned as hell. So yesterday I was testing out Zani 4 hours S0 R1 before I went out and duped her and all that good stuff. And I was running everything, all the holograms, everything at level 80, 90, 100, yada, yada, yada. And there were certain scenarios where I was even talking to my boys and I was like, damn, bro, she's pretty damn strong. This might be a little bit of leaks, but before, she had a little bit more duration in her liberation Super Saiyan mode type of thing, and they actually lowered that a little bit. Now, the reason for that is because if they would have left it the way it was, she would have been out here just absolutely destroying everything. She does feel underwhelming in certain scenarios if you're not running her with a team that supports her playstyle. That's absolutely true, so I get them from that, point of view. But saying she feels absolutely underwhelming, I don't know. A lot of people were saying that Phoebe, damage-wise, we're talking about S0R1 characters, wasn't all that great either. And I'm going to be honest, if we pair up Zani with her best in slot currently, which is Phoebe, and then we pair up Phoebe with her best in slot, which is S-Rover, I gotta say, Zani puts out more damage. And yes, one has a limited support while the other one has a free support, but y'all get where I'm coming from. I still think that Zani is a pretty good character and she deals amazing damage when you're playing her the right way. I just dropped a video, matter of fact, and I was once I go into the mode on a right rotation with my Zani, I'm dealing 4, 5, 600,000 damage in that short burst of Zani turning into a Super Saiyan. So that's pretty damn good compared to my other characters, and I pretty much have almost every character in the game. I've been doing a lot of testing. Y'all know I like to farm echoes a lot. I like to mid-max my characters. I know a lot of people don't do that, but I like mid-maxing and testing to see what it is that they really offer, okay? Alright, now I have a cool video by Sweetly where she tests out Rover versus Phoebe in Zani team compositions. Now, the real reason I want y'all to watch this is because there's a lot that gets talked about in here that a lot of people just yap without knowing. So let's go ahead and actually have a look. And as you can see, she's testing them side by side. You have Rover's team to the left, and you have Phoebe's team to the right. This is sped up a little bit, so we don't have to sit here and watch them for too long. But basically what's going on here is that Phoebe's team is a team that once it ramps up, Zani is top heavy. She's going to start dealing insane amounts of damage, as you can see right here on the right side. Zani's starting to nuke, whereas the Rover team depends more on your overall team damage, quick swapping, and gradually dealing the damage to the enemy. Now, what I really want y'all to pay attention is the overall clear times, because not only are both of these teams going to be able to clear this with 3 stars, but the difference in duration when it comes to the clear is not going to be insane or game breaking. It's relatively close, but there's a lot more nuance to it. So as you can see, pretty damn close. Now, there's a lot we got to talk about, right? 52.6 seconds versus 58.72 seconds. Is Rover only 10 to 15% worse than Phoebe? And like I was telling you guys, no. The reality of it is that Rover is, I would say, about 15 to maybe 25% worse than Phoebe in optimized rotations. That is because Zani and Phoebe have faster rotations. Zani was ready to go to deal even more damage right then and there, whereas with Rover, you would have had to set up again. Now, that is very important because right now with our bosses, we're able to nuke them down relatively quickly, so you don't really get to see this, but if bosses were to have more health or were to be a little bit harder to kill, you would get to see how Zani and Phoebe would be a lot better. Once again, not to the point where it's game breaking. It's not 10% better, but it's also not 40% better. It's, I would say, anywhere from 20 to 25%, which is honestly about the same as most other teams without their best in slot support. Now, if you grab a character like Jin Shi and you pair her up with like Yuan Wu, as opposed to pairing her up with Cantarella, you're also going to see a pretty big damage difference. Once again, nothing like 40 or 50%, but maybe 10, 15, 20% damage difference. And that's something that is very important to point out. Now, here's what I was telling y'all. Rover is actually even worse. The Phoebe team had another full Zani combo left. I also needed to use optimal Zani combos with Rover, and it required more quick swaps. This Rover is also very well built. With Phoebe, you can just Unga Boonga, and Phoebe just needs random moonlit pieces. So that's one thing that I was telling you guys earlier in the video. When it comes to the Phoebe Zani comp, you're really just top heavy using Zani as your main source of damage, just going out there dealing as much damage, and it's relatively easy. It's a lot easier to play, right? When it comes to Rover, you're doing a more active playstyle. You're doing a lot more quick swapping. You're doing a lot more things that might not be suitable for a lot of people. So I could see from that regard alone how some people might not like it, okay? I do understand that, but they are relatively close in damage when you compare one being the free-to-play option and the other one being the premium option.